For decades, the name Viktor Bout was this whisper, right? Something you'd hear in the shadowy corners of global conflicts. But then, boom, 2022 happens, and his name is suddenly everywhere. It's all over the headlines, and it makes everyone ask the same kind of chilling question. Who is this guy they call the Merchant of Death?
So, the reason he's suddenly back in the spotlight? A super high-stakes prisoner exchange. And just look at the two sides of this deal. On one side, you've got the American basketball star Brittney Griner, who is locked up for having, less than a gram of cannabis oil? And on the other side, you have Viktor Bout, a guy convicted of literally conspiring to kill Americans. The sheer imbalance of that trade, it's just staggering, and it left everybody wondering,
why? Why was this man so valuable to Russia? I mean, that's really the core question we're going to dig into. Why would the Kremlin go to such lengths for a guy the U.S. spent years hunting down and locking up? What makes Viktor Bout so important? Well, to figure that out, we've got to rewind the clock. We have to go right back to the beginning.
To get the full picture of the man he is today, we have to understand the chaotic world that made him.
Okay, so Viktor Bout's early life, it's a bit of a mystery. And honestly, that's probably exactly how he wanted it. We know he was born in the Soviet Union, but the really crucial part is where he went to school, the Soviet Military Institute of Foreign Languages. Now, this was not your average language school. No way. It was a well-known recruiting ground for Soviet military intelligence. And what did he get out of it? An absolutely incredible skill set. He became a polyglot, fluent in at least 5 languages. We're talking Portuguese, Arabic, you name it. And maybe even more important, he walked away with a priceless network of contacts.
And then, 1991, the Soviet Union just collapses. For millions of people, this was an absolute disaster. But for Viktor Bout, it was the business opportunity of a lifetime. Think about it. Overnight, this recently discharged officer finds himself in a landscape littered with mountains of Soviet weaponry and aircraft with basically no owners. His rise from there was, meteoric. By 95, he's got his own air freight company. By 2000, the United Nations is already connecting him to illegal arms trafficking. And just a few years later, in 2003, a British minister gives him the nickname that would stick forever, the Merchant of Death.
So let's talk about that empire. In less than 10 years, this guy goes from being a nobody ex-officer to the head of a massive global arms network.
So what was his secret sauce? Well, it was his fleet of these old, beat-up Soviet cargo planes, like the Ilyushin Il-76. These things were absolute workhorses. I mean, they weren't pretty, but they could land on a dirt road, a remote airstrip, right in the middle of a war zone. This gave him an incredible advantage. He could get into places that no legitimate company would ever dare to go. He basically became the personal FedEx for the world's worst conflicts.
And the real genius of his whole operation was how he hid everything right out in the open. It was this business of duality. One day, his planes are flying totally legitimate cargo. We're talking flowers, frozen chickens, even French soldiers or UN peacekeepers. And then, the very next day, that exact same plane could be dropping off crates of AK-47s or surface-to-air missiles. It was this chameleon act that made him almost impossible to pin down.
So who is he selling to? Well, his client list reads like a who's who of global bad guys. You have to understand, this guy wasn't about ideology. He didn't care about left or right, this side or that side. It was all about the money. He's supplying warlords in Africa, like Charles Taylor in Liberia. He's arming rebel groups in Angola. He's allegedly involved in the Middle East with groups like Hezbollah. He's even in Asia and Europe during the Yugoslav wars. The bottom line was simple. If you had cash in a conflict, Viktor Bout was open for business.
Nothing really tells you about his mindset quite like his own words. He gave an interview back in 2003 after 9/11, and he said, and I quote, "I woke up after September 11 and found I was second only to Osama." Just let that sink in. It's an absolutely shocking thing to say. It shows you this is a man who didn't just understand how infamous he was, he seemed to enjoy it. He was proud of his reputation.
But, when you get that famous, or rather infamous, you also get a massive target on your back. And the United States especially was dead set on taking him down. Which brings us to the takedown in Thailand.
Seriously, the way they finally got him sounds like it was ripped straight from a Hollywood script. The DEA set up this incredibly elaborate sting operation. First, their agents went undercover pretending to be buyers from the FARC, the Colombian rebel group. And they made a very specific, very tempting offer, a huge multi-million-dollar deal for surface-to-air missiles. The purpose? To shoot down American helicopters. And Bout, he took the bait. He flew all the way to a fancy hotel in Bangkok, Thailand to meet the rebel leader and sealed the deal. And of course, the second he walked into that room, bam, The Thai police, working with the DEA, stormed in, and it was all over.
It wasn't immediate. There was this long 2-year legal battle over his extradition. Russia fought tooth and nail to stop it, but in the end, the U.S. won. And in November 2010, Viktor Bout was put on a plane to America. I mean, this photo right here says it all. For U.S. law enforcement, this was a huge, huge win. After all those years, the world's most wanted arms dealer was finally in handcuffs on their turf.
And a sentence he got after his trial in Manhattan? 25 years. A quarter of a century in a U.S. federal prison. Now, technically, that was the mandatory minimum for his crimes. But for a guy like Bout, who had operated with total freedom for so long, that was basically a life sentence.
And it's really important to be clear about what they got him on. This wasn't just arms trafficking. The conviction was for some incredibly serious stuff, all related to terrorism. Conspiracy to kill American citizens and officials, delivery of anti-aircraft missiles, and providing aid to a designated terrorist organization. I mean, these are about as serious as charges get in the U.S. legal system.
So, for about a decade, that was it. That seemed to be the end of the story. The Merchant of Death was off the board, locked away. But then, the prisoner swap happened, bringing us full circle, and his story got a final act that, honestly, nobody saw coming.
And just look at this transformation. It's just breathtaking. In 2012, he's a U.S. federal prisoner, a convicted felon. Fast forward to 2023, and he is a Russian legislator, a politician. I mean, going from prisoner to politician in a decade, that's the kind of twist that made everyone's head spin and got the world talking about him all over again. And his pivot into politics was fast. We're talking within days of landing back in Russia in December in 2022, he joins this ultra-nationalist political party. By the next September, he's already won a seat in a local assembly. So, you see, he wasn't just brought home and forgotten. No, he was immediately elevated. He was given a platform and a brand new career inside the Russian political machine. And that brings us right back to where we started, with that big question. From prisoner to politician, what's next? Why was he so valuable to Russia? Was it a reward for past services, for the secrets he might know? Or is it about the skills he still has? His journey from a U.S. prison cell to the corridors of Russian power is just wild. And it really proves one thing. The story of Viktor Bout is far from over. Which leaves all of us wondering, what on earth is the next chapter for the Merchant of Death?